The Girl No One Wanted is a very intense foster carer memoir from Maggie Hartley. Usually, I don't like it as much when the memoirs are shorter. This one, I can't remember how many pages it was. I read it on Kindle, but I think it took about 40 minutes to read. It's not a long read at all, but it is intense. The emotions in this are just on the surface on every single page, and it was so gripping and really frustrating. It's always really awkward when there's a really unlikable child, but the journey is very interesting. However, rereading this now, there is one sentence that completely shatters the illusion, and it is a spoiler for something that happens with a later foster care memoir from Maggie Hartley. So I'll leave that for a spoiler warning at the end. But it really irritated me because I read this initially back in 2019. It was released originally in 2017. I'm rereading all of Maggie Hartley's books just now, and I couldn't remember pretty much any of this. Interestingly, I could remember the picnic scene because it starts with Maggie and Louisa at a picnic for the foster carers, and there's this foster carer with a little girl, an 11-year-old girl called Leanne, who completely kicks off at this picnic. And oddly, I could really remember that very vividly, but the rest of the book I couldn't. And given that this is a really short read, I can't really go into too much detail without spoiling a large amount of the book. But basically, this little girl, Leanne, is completely out of control, and her current foster carer actually ends up phoning Maggie one night, asking Maggie for help, pleading with Maggie for help because she's had to lock herself in the bathroom because of how violent and out of control Leanne is being. And Leanne ends up staying with Maggie for some respite care, and it seems like nobody wants Leanne. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it's something like 30 foster carers and foster homes in, I think, 5 or 6 years since she's been in the system, which is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, it's her own fault. Now, is it really the child's fault, or is she a product of her upbringing? Well, I'd say it's probably a bit of both. Some children are just very difficult from day one. Some of them become increasingly difficult in response to environmental factors. With Leanne, I kind of get the impression it's a bit of both. And what annoyed me so much is that she kept saying things like, I don't want to stay at Maggie's. And I just wanted somebody to turn round to her and say, well, okay, where do you want to go? Because what's her alternative? She's pushed everybody away, and fine if she doesn't want to stay with Maggie, great, we'll send her somebody else somewhere else. But where does she want to go? And obviously, the answer to that is Leanne doesn't have a clue. Of course, she doesn't know where she wants to go. Leanne's social worker does have plans for her. Maggie doesn't think it's the best plan. I won't say exactly what it is, but honestly, it is so unclear what's going to happen with her, and it is very difficult to watch because her behavior is horrific and she physically assaults Maggie. And honestly, I feel like she needed to. This didn't happen, but I feel like she should have called the police because when somebody is that horrible and that nasty, at 11, let's remember she's 11 years old. She's not a toddler. Even though she can't control her emotions, she still knows the difference between right and wrong. She's not an idiot. And I feel like she needed a strong wake up call. So there are things that Maggie did that I didn't agree with. And that was frustrating to read, but also basically everything Leanne does is frustrating as well. So I'm really kind of glad that it was a short read because I don't know how I'd cope with 300 and something pages of that. It makes sense that it was a bit more condensed, and it works very well. I mean, I'm saying it was frustrating, but I enjoyed it for the right reasons, for the emotional journey. We do get some development, and obviously, even though I don't agree with Maggie's approaches some of the time, I can see where she was coming from, and certain things are very interesting to see how they unfold. So I do thoroughly recommend it, but if you're looking for a read to escape to rather than one that will heighten your emotions, this might not be the best choice at this present moment. But I did, I enjoyed it for the right reasons and found it fascinating for the right reasons. Definitely a very intense read. So, the sentence that shattered the illusion. This is a big spoiler for Louisa's story. So, either earlier this year or late last year, Maggie finally wrote about Louisa's story. We know Louisa came to Maggie after her parents died in a car crash, but we never really knew the details of it. And in Louisa's story, I won't go into too much detail, but to make a long story short, she was in a coma for a very long time, and Maggie spent a lot of time at the hospital visiting her, and obviously eventually she transitioned to living with Maggie from the hospital. It's a powerful book from a medical perspective. It's so fascinating and so interesting, and one of the best books I've ever read. And there's a sentence in The Girl No One Wanted that completely shatters everything. Now, there are two possible reasons for this. I can't remember the sentence exactly, but it's something along the lines of Louisa was a much more confident girl now compared to the shy, timid child who arrived on Maggie's doorstep with her social worker. And I just thought, she didn't. She didn't arrive on Maggie's doorstep with her social worker. That's not what happened. In fact, quite the opposite. Maggie arrived to her or at her bedside. And there are two possible reasons for this. And one is that the person who edited The Girl No One Wanted just put that sentence in there, not really knowing Louisa's real backstory and figuring every other child arrives on Maggie's doorstep, so that's clearly what must have happened. And the editor put that in there. It slipped through the net. I'm praying that that is what has happened. The other option is that Louisa's story is a complete lie and she wasn't in a coma and she did actually just arrive on Maggie's doorstep and all of that was fabricated for, well, for sales and to sell copies of the book. And I'm really hoping that that's not the case. I know foster care memoirs are actually quite heavily modified to protect the identities of the children involved, but never would I think they'd make up a child in a coma for, I can't remember how long it was, but a very long time. And I really hope that that's not the case. I really hope it isn't, because there's altering the story to protect identities, and then there's outright deceit. I guess there's a third possible option, and that's it was intentionally throwing us off the scent because maybe Louisa didn't want Maggie to tell her story yet. And I mean, obviously, a lot of the times when the children move on, it's impossible to ask for their permission to tell their story. But given Maggie's really close relationship with Louisa, it would make sense that she'd ask Louisa if it's okay to tell her story. And maybe up until that point, Louisa just wasn't comfortable with any of the details of her coma being in print, and it was done to throw us off the scent. However, it would have been better to just say something to the effect of, the timid child who arrived at my home all of those years ago. And then you're not lying, you're just not giving the truth. So, either way, it's a very poorly written sentence. And I just hope that I'm thinking too much into it and that it's not something that has a deeper, darker meaning. But either way, I can't deny the fact that it threw me and annoyed me a little bit. I'm going to try my best to forget that that sentence exists because I don't want to think about the alternative. So I just want to mention that that is something that really bothered me. And if you're reading this after you've read Louisa's story, I feel like it might catch you out as well. So I wanted to mention that it didn't bypass me. I didn't not pick up on it. I will probably never mention it again because I will try my best to not think of it again. But circling back around, The Girl No One Wanted is a book that I definitely recommend. It is easily one of the most intense reads from not just Maggie Hartley, but any foster carer memoir. And it is difficult to read, very well written. Some grammatical errors, actually quite a few grammatical errors, but not so much that it wasn't possible to read it, of course. But generally, in terms of the development of the story and the narrative structure, it was well written, well structured. Definitely one I recommend, but it's worth bearing in mind that it will pull your emotions in every direction and it is intense. So if you're looking for something to escape into, this might not be the best choice. But if you're in the mood for something that's really going to make you feel a lot of strong emotions, The Girl No One Wanted is perhaps a good one to go with.